Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the May 24th meeting of the Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority, and I will call the meeting to order. First item 2 is items from the chairman. We have 2 recommendations from the Development and Water Use Committee. We're going to go into these more in depth in the agenda where we actually have an item on them, but the recommendation from the committee, Kathy? Okay. We don't vote on that now, do we? Okay. Item 3 is the minutes from the April 26th meeting. Do we have any corrections or additions?
Move approval. Second.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 4 is the consent docket. We have the oil and gas revenue report and the Oklahoma River corridor events update. Any questions on either one of those?
Move approval of both items.
Second.
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 5 is the primary agenda item. Item A is to receive the preliminary site plan for improvements at Lost Lakes Development on property leased from the Riverfront Authority. I understand we have a presentation on that by Mr. Johnson. If you remember, we approved this at the last meeting and asked for a little better detail on what was going on. I think that's what we're going to see today.
Mr. Chairman and committee, Tim Johnson with Johnson Associates, and I'm here on behalf of the applicants. Roger Skeens and Brad White have been working with us to develop a plan for this very large site. Initially, let me show you the plan that illustrates the private property, which is in green, and then the river lease is the blue tract and the yellow tract. So you can see it takes up quite a bit of acreage south of 10th Street, south of 23rd Street, and north and south of 10th Street. And so what they've asked us to do is we worked with them to develop some 3D imagery, because right now it's all vacant, with the exception of the work that they've been using the lake for with regard to the skiing venue that's there. This is kind of an overall plan. I'll zoom in on several of these segments, but this is looking north across 10th Street, just west of the river. We took the liberty to build a dam down at 23rd Street so that we could back water up into the river here. But you can see the white outline dashed area is the private property where the actual water feature, the Lost Lakes are, and then the other properties are areas that they would accept for maintenance and maintain into these various venues. Just a little different look. As part of this, there'll be RV parking, event parking. There's 2 venues for music, one large, one small. There's a swimming beach and a very large slide that they're proposing, outdoor camping, potential horse trails, and BMX biking, as well as a launching area for air balloons. And so this is the extreme slide. This is a kind of a mimic of one that we've looked at that was constructed in Wichita Falls, very successful. You have to be crazy or under 30 to use this because it's really extreme. These kids come flying off that thing and go swimming in the water. It's very exciting to watch. But these are areas to be seating around the beach area. These are old sand mine pits. The water's very clear and cool. The wakeboard course, which is being used now, this is the lake that it's on. There's an island there. They want to create an island bar next to a smaller music venue. That you can see the slide in the back, just engaging all the water feature that they can. This is the main stage, which is towards the north end of the project. It'd be all grass, seating, and there'll be a stage that is set up to actually do real concerts in. And this seating area would probably hold anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 people. The smaller stage, as I mentioned, is kind of in a sandy beach area with mobile truck concessions right adjacent to the water. This shows some of the parking. There's a restaurant, a major restaurant that's conceived on the west side of the lakes. And then the TP Rustic Camping. This is a very popular venue that's being used across the nation. So we've mimicked that in this area that would allow for people to actually come and camp out without, electricity and things like that, just a real camping site in the city, which is kind of exciting. You don't have to drive 3 hours to the lake to go camp out with your kids. And then the RV parking, this is kind of in a remote area up at the far northwest corner, just creating an area that people can park their RV and then use this venue or spend the weekend in a music event, and just creating that use. And as I mentioned, the air balloon launching area, this is a very flat area that's on the south side of the riverbank now, that's up on a high knoll that would be a great location to launch and with great views of the river and the city. Many of you probably have seen or heard about the New Mexico events that they have for air balloons, and there's quite a number of air balloons in Oklahoma City you can see out on a nice windless day, which doesn't happen very often. The BMX course would be on the south side of the river again, just an area that can be used for kids and bikes. It's very popular on our Lake Draper property. And then the horse trails. This is an opportunity south of 23rd on the west side of the river to allow for some horse trails to be utilized to attract a lot of northeast Oklahoma City residents have horses or store horses and can bring them down here to ride along the river. Main parking would be south of 10th Street in an area that's not being maintained or used right now, with access across 10th Street as well as a trail system under the bridge at 10th Street and the river that would allow people to walk into the event center. And then last, summing up, again, the tract, the large yellow tract in this map is the leased area. The green tract is the private land. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Jim? Yeah.
Your main parking lot area, what improvement is it?
We're in the process of developing the planned unit development, which is our next step, is to go to the city with a planned unit development. Ideally, we'd like to have it be a mixture of pervious and impervious material to lighten the load on runoff to the river, and use either a pavement type or a gravel to allow water to penetrate. Try to make it as least impactful to the environment as possible.
So what is the timeline for development?
The program, if we go forward with the zoning, that's going to take us 4 or 5 months to get through that process. And then the construction would be the big slide first, and then the other events would follow behind that. I don't know that they've got an exact sequence yet, but the big slide's the first on our agenda.
In light of our looking for new sources of income, what does the trust get out of this long term? No.
What do we get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe that 5% of the total revenues.
Yeah. There's some revenue sharing in the take on it that was in the contract originally.
It's 5% of the income that is derived from the city, the Okra and city property. So if a concert takes place on privately owned property, we would get the parking, 5% of the parking, and concessions that take place on our property.
I might point out, too, that there's some other benefits other than the financial. The area that the city owns right now, or the River Trust owns, we've had a lot of problems with dumping. It's not secured, and Mr. Skeen has committed as part of the agreement that he will clean that area up and fence it off, so it'll be more secure and, won't be an eyesore like it is today.
Get in front of the microphone, please.
Yes, sir. As of today, 23rd Street has been secured on the east side of the river. Probably on the west side of the river, that will be completed by the end of the afternoon. And then we're going to move to Sooner Road and put up permanent fencing along Sooner Road in the areas that we've talked about. And that probably should be done by probably midweek next week. We're putting chain link fence up there with a entry and access point there.
You're going to have to get it secure before you start cleaning up the dumping, or they'll come right in behind you.
Well, yeah, they are doing it now as we speak. You have to flag them off.
Doug, do you have any issues or anything with it? I know you've been working hand in hand with them on this property. Do you have any concerns?
Of course, the permanent parking lot will probably have to be dealt with from an engineering perspective. If it's in the flood zone, I'm sure that we'll have to pay close attention to that, and whether the Corps of Engineers might have concerns with that kind of structure obstructing flow, especially if we have tree islands and things along those lines. Other than that, I think it's a good opportunity to generate some revenues for the trust. Obviously, we would want to probably recommend to you all that conversation be held with Councilmember Pettis as it relates to these specific improvements going in adjacent to property that he has within his TIF district that is adjacent to this property as well.
Doug, we have had conversations with Mr. Pettis about the project in general.
Yes, sir. He is sold on the concept of what we are. I just want to make sure he's kept up to date with specifics now that we're getting closer to a real plan. I just want to make sure that we cover the bases with him and make sure he's comfortable. That'd be my... Otherwise, I think it's a great opportunity. I love the camping idea. Obviously, we're looking at equestrian activities on the river anyway, so it'd be a great opportunity.
Okay.
Just one last thing I'd like to add. As part of our zoning process, there'll be several meetings that will include Mr. Pettis in. We've already have one set up for the 31st, so the process is starting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Need a motion to receive the preliminary site plan?
So moved.
Cast your vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Tim. Item B is to the consultant services contract with Pat Downs, doing business at Strategic Solutions LLC. It's in your packet. I mentioned this was coming forward. It's a kind of a phased project for Pat for 5 months, and it is retroactive back to 1st of May, so that when his other contract ended. So, do we have any questions on it?
Move the item.
Sorry. I would just like to make, a couple of comments, and this isn't about Pat, this isn't about anything, any person, but, over the past year, we've witnessed very significant reductions in the River Trust revenues for both oil and gas and the sand mining. And at the end of last year, I was asked by the chair and general manager to attend a meeting to help formulate a plan for moving forward and increasing evidence that the leasee was possibly not going to be successful finding another sand mining location on the property, and the oil and gas continued to decrease. At that meeting, we looked at the actual and projected income, actual and projected expenses, and existing revenues. And at the end of the meeting, we agreed that it was necessary to transition the contractual agreement into the Director of Development to a city-managed position, which was by far our largest expense. We all agreed that we would honor the last 4 months of the existing contract and not renew it, but at this time, to transition these responsibilities. As a trustee, recognizing the fiduciary responsibility, I don't feel like I can support spending another $40,000 on something that, from the reserves from another transition period, since that's what we just completed, is what my understanding. So I just feel like I need to make it clear that I think we just did a transition period. We were not going to renew it, and now we're doing another, and I just don't feel like I can support that.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion? Do I get a second?
Second?
Any other questions? Cast your vote. And it passes unanimously. Okay. Item C is a resolution approving the proposal for the initial phase of the equestrian trails. This is an item that we met in the Use Committee at noon. And you want to go over that a little bit?
Yes,
Kathy?
I'd be glad to. The committee met just prior to this trust meeting, and we discussed the resolution as it deals with the River Park, which is at 800 Agnew, which is between Pennsylvania and Agnew. And the committee has agreed that we would adopt this resolution in order to have the unearth the earthen equestrian trail with the hitching posts and the trailhead. And what's most important is having the signage to set out the trails. And so the committee approved this resolution. We will visit with Ward 6, Meg Salyer, because this park was in her district.
The funding for this is coming out of the current parks budget, and we appreciate Doug taking that on and kicking off what we hope will be a much larger enterprise down there at some point in time. So, any other questions on it? That's a motion.
This is a motion from the committee.
Second?
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Now that we've approved the initial phase of the trails, we need to approve horses being on the trails. That's the next item, Kathy.
Yes, we do. The committee recommends this resolution as well, so that we can allow horseback riding.
Just to brief everybody's memory, we've accepted that on the river currently at Crystal Lake. This will be the exception, the second exception on the river for this park here.
Correct, and it will be within this area, 800 South Agnew.
That's a motion.
Park.
That's a motion?
That is a motion.
Second. Second?
Cast your vote, and it passes unanimously. Item E is a resolution expressing support for the request to dedicate the fishing dock at Crystal Lake Park in memory of the late Joe McCrary, former Oklahoma City Game and Fish Commissioner and civic volunteer. This was in your packet with an explanation of why this is coming forward. It's going to parks, or has it gone to parks already?
I believe it went to the Parks Commission. Is that correct, Doug?
No, it has not. Since the property is leased to the trust, we have not taken it to the Board of Park Commissioners.
Okay.
Any questions on it? Motion to approve?
Move the item.
Move the item.
Second?
Cast your vote. It passes unanimously. Item 9 is a claims docket. Go pay our bills.
Second.
Cast your vote. And it passes unanimously. Item 7 is the comments from staff. Pat, you have anything other than your written report or anything you want to comment on?
No, just I wanted to note that the Road to Rio festivities and the gala opening of the Whitewater facility featured what is believed to be the largest fireworks display ever put on in the state of Oklahoma, and that was funded by the U.S. Olympic Committee jointly with the Boathouse Foundation. Had a very large crowd there enjoying a lot of good food and a lot of great events. The Olympic trials went off without a hitch, and Mike Knopp, the Boathouse Foundation exec, just returned from a meeting in Atlanta with a group that's planning the Pan American Games in the United States, and they have a great deal of interest in our facility here for both Flatwater and Whitewater, which would be the only place in the world where both events can be held simultaneously. So otherwise would be happy to answer questions or would ask that the report be received as submitted.
Move
Any
the
other-
item.
Second.
Cast your vote. It passes. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, I was down there I think it was a Thursday night, the Downtown Rotary Club dedicated Rotary Point, and had a big crowd, and it was really nice. And then I was down there the next night for the opening of the thing, huge event. It just so happened that the next week, I think it was Tuesday, I just drove down there to walk around without the crowds, and the fire department was already there doing some of its training in the whitewater course, and they were just blown away by it. So I think it's going to be a big hit. Mike, you got anything you'd like to say about it? I can't believe it's not going to be the premier rowing venue. If it's not already, once the word gets out, it will be.
Well, I think it will be. I think we did receive great feedback from all the competitors, and word has gotten around, like as Pat had mentioned, with they call it COPAC. It's the organization that oversees Pan American canoe kayak events, and they're very excited about bringing events here to Oklahoma City, and of course the International Federation as well. So we're getting a lot of really tremendous feedback in terms of this venue compared to others. We are having our first festival of the summer that starts over Memorial Day weekend with music, and of course food trucks and all the rafting. So that should be a lot of fun on Saturday. And we last weekend was first really good weather weekend since Olympic trials, and it was very busy. Lots of people rafting, and tubing is now starting. We have tubing tonight, so we do. There's a variety of things that we can do, of course, with our Whitewater Center. So it's so far so good.
Well, I know I talked to the people with the design group, and I also talked with Joe Jacoby and the Olympic people, and they all are just ecstatic. I asked the design group, I said, did it meet your expectations? And he said it exceeded our expectations. It's really turned out nice. So good job.
Thank you.
Any comments by trustees?
Pat, I just wondered, do you have the report yet on the River Parade?
No, sir, we haven't received that information yet, but it has been requested.
Any comments from citizens? We are adjourned.